you inevitably learn a number of small but essential lessons in the course of living. Among those lessons I've learned is always check a situation out personally beforehand before you bring other people into that situation. There's nothing that substitutes for direct personal engagement in any kind of process or situation where you know its fine points. And the devil is truly in the details. I found that it's just a consistent lesson. And one of those details that you will run into in very many business type settings is the problem of business lunch. People like to get together, have a nice lunch, maybe loosen up a little bit, and have a drink or two, talk business, maybe get around to working on a contract. So the lesson I learned is, if you find a restaurant that you like and is a great place to get your bit of lunch and business taken care of, make that a power base for yourself. And that means tip well. Make sure that you can get one of the big square tables that seats 4, even if you're planning on just having lunch with another person, instead of those little tiny sardine tables that are designed for business people to sit together and have this sort of overly in-your-face type meeting. And I've always found that to be unpleasant. It's always been much better to have one of those large 4-seaters. And you'll be much more likely to get that if you have a long-standing relationship with that restaurant, if it's convenient to your office, and they know that you're going to tip them very well. So sometimes I'll do a little reconnaissance in another city and try to find out, are there places I could use that might be convenient to a hotel or might be good for that kind of that sort of meeting if necessary. But my rule is, become known at the place, visit it frequently, and really understand its rhythms and what you're going to expect at a different time. The dinner experience and the lunch experience can be very, very different things. So the moral of this story is, in the city of London, I decided to get a sense of how things worked at Nobu. And Nobu is a restaurant that must cost a fortune. I have no idea what the daily operating expenses of Nobu must be, including an astronomical lease in an absolutely AAA premier location, the Nobu brand, the whole thing. So I went there by myself, and I went to the sushi bar, and Nobu has the most world-renowned sushi bar, the finest fresh examples of the most wonderfully delicious raw fish I think it is possible to obtain. And the restaurant seemed to be moderately busy, but not terribly busy. About, I would say, a quarter of the restaurant was seated. So the maitre d', or whoever this person was, took me to the sushi bar, and I sat down there, and some wait person came over with the most beautiful lacquered tray I've ever seen. A gold leaf lacquered tray, some kind of handcrafted work of art, unlike any tray I've ever seen. And I think to hand me some chopsticks and maybe a napkin or something. And then the waiter vanished and everybody vanished, and I was sitting there at the sushi bar for about 20 minutes. And there was absolutely no service, and I couldn't get anyone's attention. I thought, this is just the strangest thing, that they would invest this much money in creating a restaurant experience and yet not have any supervisors around or any staff who could direct the activity intelligently in this restaurant. So I was exasperated. But I really need to get something to eat. This is not working. The way they're running this restaurant is just dysfunctional. It's ridiculous. Some people are getting served, other people are not getting served, and the owners are maybe far away in Chicago or something, have no idea what's going on. So I said, okay, enough of this. Nobu is not a place I want to use for a business lunch, at least not in the way I was envisioning it. So as I was walking out, I walked by this alcove, and there were 4 or 5 kids, boys that were maybe age 19, 20, 21, 22 at the oldest, who were supposed to be waiters, and they were all clutching these beautiful, handcrafted, gold-leafed trays, these serving trays, and they were sort of standing around and just turning in circles, and they had been stuffed, kind of packed away into this little dark alcove where they were not permitted to exit from. And they were all kind of looking around with tremendous confusion. What were they doing in this little dark nook where they weren't allowed to interact with the customers and serve them appropriately, which would have been exactly what the restaurant needed to do? The customers were sitting there not getting served. The people behind the desk area, the sort of podium thing, were just standing behind their open books, writing things down, answering the phone, erasing them. Nobody was directing anything. So here you had a number of different parties who were supposed to be coordinating what was billed as and had a reputation as a world-class gastronomic experience, and nobody could get anything done. And I thought, not only they're not getting anything done, this place is probably costing them a great deal of money. I don't know how many pounds per minute it costs to run this restaurant, to keep it open, like 250 pounds a minute or something, just to have the doors open. Yet their staff was all hanging out, hiding out, frightened, confused, disoriented, with no direction and no instruction. The people who were supposed to be managing the reservations, etc., seemed to have no interaction or unwilling to exert any kind of authority or direction or instruction in helping these kids get out there and serve the customers. And the customers were there, frustrated and confused, and the guys, the Japanese guys, were getting no direction from anyone as they were preparing the various sushi things. And I thought, this is really strange. This isn't like a restaurant. This is like 3 or 4 separate tribes of confused, dysfunctional people who all could come together and coordinate and produce an absolutely superb, elegant, meaningful, attractive dining experience. But because they lacked any kind of comprehensive central direction of who should be doing what, the whole thing was a total fiasco. It was completely botched. So I think that is something that I encounter over and over again, that the resources are there, the effort is there, the investment is tremendous, and yet they can't get the results because the coordination between the various parties just doesn't exist.